Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. I apologise, it is raining here. The weather has taken a downward turn. This is a floppy drive from Sony. As you can see, it's the MPF920. Now, this one actually originally shipped in my ST. If you've seen any of my ST videos, you'll see that I heavily modified my ST. I fitted a little screen there and I cut the case and stuff, and I wouldn't normally do that. I wouldn't cut into cases of these systems, but it had already been modified. Someone had hacked out the side where the floppy drive fits on my ST, and this is the drive that was in there. So I've marked this up as ST/STE, and it's been in storage for a while, but it just so happens I needed one of these and remembered I had this and went looking for it, and yeah, it's the right one. There are many floppy drives you can get that will work in an ST and an STE, but you can also modify some of them to work in an Amiga. Anyway, so I'm going to modify this to work on my Amiga. So we need to unclip the lid first. There are no screws holding the lid on. So I'm guessing if we carefully prise this up, and I apologise for the rain noises, super annoying. And you might be wondering why I'm taking the front off. Well, so I can clean up here. You know, we'll lubricate this. Look at that old grease on there. We'll lubricate that, clean up the heads. But we also need to remove the shielding from the bottom board, and this one is screwed on. As you can see, you've got screws there. I think there's 3 screws primarily. So I unclipped the front fascia here. You know, there's 2 clips, one on the bottom part of the shield and one on the top, and then the shielding has obviously just come off that. It's not really shielding, it's part of the assembly, isn't it, the chassis. So pin 34 down here, I think that's where the ready switch needs to go. And then the other thing we need to do is change the drive select, but it looks like someone's done this. Can you see here, cell 1 and cell 0, they've got 2 jumper positions there. There would have originally been a 0 ohm link across here, and it looks like someone's pulled it off and just blobbed soldered a blob of solder there. So that's already been done. So I think you need to do the same mod when you want to use one of these with an ST by the looks of things. But the one that's different is this pin 34. So I just need to work out where the switch is connected to, and I think cut whatever's going to 34 and join a wire from there to wherever. So a correction, actually, these do have a disc change switch. You can see we've got 2 here. So that's actually a correction to the recent Amiga 2000 video I did. I don't know why, I was assuming that was the thing that needed change, but it isn't. My memory's getting mixed up. It is the disc change pin, so 34 here. We need to break the trace that goes to that. And I went looking for the pinouts of these chips here. I couldn't find anything. I'm sure it once existed, and it perhaps still does somewhere. And even a service manual for this drive, because I know that Sony do sometimes produce service manuals, detailed technical manuals and things to support their products, but I couldn't find anything from that aspect either. So quick search of Google and on YouTube. There are a couple of guides actually doing the same mods to this drive, so they've already covered what we've covered here, and they're cutting the pin off here. The thing I wasn't sure is where you solder the wire to, and it appears to be, I think, this 3rd via. You've got 1, 2, 3, 3rd via here that goes to the 3rd pin up on the top of this chip here. So that's all we need, a little wire from there to 34, and just cut 34 connection on the PCB, and that should work. It's as simple as that. So in the ST, all you'll need to do is move this jumper over, and then that's it. Pretty much it will work in the ST, but on the Amiga we just need that extra wire. So I've cut the connection there. All I did is use my sharp pointer tool. Yeah, knife is a good idea, an X-Acto knife or something like that, Stanley knife. And I've just sliced the trace there, and then tested connectivity to the little wire that goes up to there, where you can just see on the top of my thumb, just next to that CN6 connector. That via, that just trace goes all the way down to here. So they're no longer joined. So I'm going to use some Kynar now to just join up to the little wire. It's convenient we've got the little wires here, otherwise soldering to the pins on that chip there would be an absolute pain. But you do want to use some pretty fine wire. I was considering using coil wire, but this Kynar should be okay. So yeah, you can see I've just melted back the covering on there. We'll just snip the end off that because it doesn't need to be that long. And we'll get a tiny little bit of solder onto that point there. Solder our Kynar onto it. That's it. And we can just stretch the Kynar across here now. I'll give myself a little bit of slack there. I don't want it to be super tight. And we'll snip the wire there. And we'll do the same sort of thing, just heat the solder and flux onto the end of the wire there, just to tin it up a little bit. That'll do. Get some fresh solder onto pin 34 there, and then we'll just hold that wire against the pin as we heat it. That's it, job done. So just straighten the wire out a little bit. I think that's it. So bear in mind, like I say, if you're going to do one of these yourself and you've got one of these drives straight out of a PC, you will now need to, use the soldering iron, and you can just heat both sides of the component there at the same time, and it'll just come off. And you can just literally do what the previous owner's done here and just solder a blob on the two jumpers there. These two should be open circuit, and these two should be joined when you're using it with an Amiga or an ST. So let's give this a go with the Amiga here. So pin 1, the red stripe here towards the power. Connect the power up. I'm going to have to hold this because obviously it's disassembled at this stage, but if we just switch the Amiga on, yeah, that's on. And if we stick the disc in, you can see, look, it's accessing the drive already there. It's a good sign. Yeah, well, that's not working, is it? Yeah, it is booting. What's happening here is I think the disk detection's not working properly still, despite having just done that mod, which is interesting. Yeah, you can see there, it's booting up, and you might just be able to hear the drive. Yeah, June has booted there. But it wasn't working when I swapped the, stuck a disc in initially. So there's still something not quite right with the connection to pin 34 there, I think. Yeah, so the reason the disc change doesn't work is another wire is required, and I found this from another location actually. I might stick a link to the video below. I mean, it's doing exactly the same what I'm doing here, but the difference, I guess, is that I've shown that, well, I think so, at the start of this video, that you can use this drive with the ST as well. But that's no surprise, because a lot of 720k drive, well, all 720k drives for the PC tend to work with the ST. So there's a couple of pads here. The bottom one, we need a wire. Yeah, so get some solder there. We need a wire from there to the top of these two wires here. The one that's nearest this 3-pin motor connector, I think it is there. It might be a sensor or something, that wire, that little white flex ribbon, but I suspect not. I suspect it's going to a motor. So let's just trim that down again. Solder our second wire here. Yeah, that's that. Stretch it across again, and just trim it off so it's the exact length there, I think. So I guess the other nice thing with this is it's super easy to revert this. You could even add your own little jumpers for these wires actually, if you wanted to toggle between an ST and an Amiga. And in fact, you used to be able to buy drives that were kind of modular. CPC and Preston, who I've mentioned a number of times, used to, when I was back in the trade, they used to sell, I think there were certain Chinon and TIAC drives that you could get that had a series of jumpers, and you could configure them to either, to work as an ST drive or an Amiga drive. I could do with a bit of flux on that because it's kind of like sticky uppy a bit there. There you go, that's not so bad. Tiny solder point there to secure that. So yeah, those are in place. Let's go and try it again. Yeah, so as I say, it was working when you had the disc in there. It would boot from the disc, but what it wouldn't do is if you just didn't have the disc in when you first powered it on, then stuck the disc in, at that point it wouldn't boot it. So I can hear it go, I can feel it now going do-do, do. Yeah, so you can feel just like a vibration every now and again. That's normal. That's what you get where it does. I don't know what it does, a seek or what. I never really understood why the Amiga works that way, where you can hear the head make a move. But if I put the disc in, it should detect that. Yeah, it has done, and it's booting. Fantastic. As you can see, that's working. So yeah, job done. So before I reassemble this, I'm just going to clean this up. Cotton bud with IPA on here. IPA. Isopropanol alcohol, 99.9%, as pure as you can get it, or denatured alcohols, I think it's sometimes referred to as. Clean the top head here again, just a bit of pressure there. Try not to bend this up, you know, because it's on a spring assembly here. You don't want to stress it out and lift it any more than it naturally feels like it's prepared to move. You could use Plastex, Maguire's Plastex, as I've said in previous floppy drive videos here, to get particularly stubborn smears and things off there. So I'll also get rid of this awful grease here, it's thick, look, and get some fresh Molycott onto there. To be fair, this bit probably doesn't need doing, because this is one of the best grease drives I've seen, actually. You know, a lot of the time the grease is awful, but actually it's pretty good stuff on these Sony drives. So it's an argument there to say, does this really need to be done? And I think the answer is probably no, unless it's all accumulated dirt and dust and stuff. You might want to just redo it at that point. So some people use like a lithium based grease for something like this. Can't get the lid off. You can see there what it is. It's Molycott's EM-30L, picked up from 12 volt vids. Fantastic channel if you like watching repairs of old VCRs and TVs and DAT drives and things like that, and hi-fis, maybe record players. So yeah, we'll just get some of this on there and rotate the bar a few times. That's all we need on there, really. That should be enough. To be fair, if we stick a disc in this and stick it in the Amiga, that will help distribute it. So I won't need to just keep winding this like that. Don't be tempted to, you know, pull the head along, because whilst this one looks like it's got a spring there that's designed to do that, so you might be able to without damaging it. Sometimes they have like a plastic piece there that can wear and break off if you force the head yourself. The only other thing you might want to do is get a cotton bud into the drive and collect any dust, but you know what, this is, well, I was going to say it's fairly spotless. There's a bit of fluff and dust come out of there, look, so it probably is a good idea to go in here and just try and collect any dust you can. And maybe consider getting some contact cleaner into the 3 switches here, although not all 3 of them are going to be used. You know, I think this one, as I said right at the start, is the HD switch. But as it turns out, that's not used for the drive select at all. They do have their own dedicated drive select here, as well as the write protect. And we'll clean up the solder points there that we've been soldering as well. Again with some IPA on a cotton bud. Around that jumper there, someone previously soldered there, but I noticed there was a bit of flux around it, so it's not going to do any harm just to go around that bit. Rotate the wrong way first so it clicks, and then rotate the right way, because I was having problems threading that actually. It was starting to cross thread, I think. And then we get the lid back on here. And the front panel should just clip back into position here. Yep, there we go. All done. So there we go, all reassembled. I've written Amiga on there as well and stuck a note on here just to remind myself for ST, undo the wire mods. So that includes, you know, obviously you'd have to fix the broken trace where you've cut the trace on pin 34 of the IDC connect here, but it really is that simple. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.